You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. On today's episode of the podcast, we review the first test between Pakistan and Australia from the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. It's the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast, and let's get started. Let's have a look at the match summary for the first test between Pakistan and Australia from the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. Pakistan won the toss and chose to bat first. They made 4 for 476 declared in their first innings. Azhar Ali top scored with 185. Marnus Labuschagne and Pat Cummins took 1 wicket each for Australia. Australia, in reply in their first innings, were all out for 459. Usman Khawaja top scored with 97. And Norman Ali took 6 wickets for Pakistan. Pakistan in their second innings finished on none for 252. Abdullah Shafiq top scored with 136 not out and no wickets taken for Australia. The match was drawn and Aman al-Haq was named man of the match. What were the key moments and key factors from this first test between Pakistan and Australia? Pakistan's batting getting to 4 for 476 declared in their first innings. The partnerships of 105 for the first wicket between al-Haq and Shafiq, 208 for the second wicket between Azhar Ali and al-Haq, and 101 for the third wicket between Azhar Ali and Azam were crucial in Pakistan reaching their first innings score of 4 for 476 declared. Australia's batting, the partnerships of 156 for the first wicket between Khawaja and Warner, 108 for the third wicket between Smith and Labuschagne, and 81 for the fifth wicket between Smith and Green helped Australia reach their total of 459 runs to get within 17 runs of Pakistan's first innings total. Pakistan's bowling to dismiss Australia for 459 to ensure they had a first innings lead of 17 runs. Pakistan's batting, the opening partnership of 252 for the first wicket between al-Haq and Shafiq, ensured that Pakistan had a big lead over Australia. The pitch, bad light, and the rain played a big part to ensure that this test match ended in a draw. Those were the key moments and key factors from this first test at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. Let's have a look at both teams' performances in this first test at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium with both bat and ball. We'll start with Pakistan and their batsmen. Shafiq, 44 and 136 not out. al-Haq, 157 and 111 not out. Azhar Ali, 185. Azam, 36. Rizwan, 29 not out. And Ahmed, 13 not out. That's how the Pakistan batsmen went about things in this first test from Rawalpindi. I thought Pakistan batted well in this test match in both innings. They really batted well. They got big scores and they were able to put themselves in a very dominant position in this test match on a pretty good batting surface at Rawalpindi. They did well in their first innings to get to 4 for 476 declared on a pitch at Rawalpindi that was pretty good for batting, as we mentioned before. Centuries from Aman al-Haq, 157, and Azhar Ali, 185, helped Pakistan reach their total of 476. The partnerships of 105 for the first wicket between al-Haq and Shafiq, 208 for the second wicket between Ali and al-Haq, 101 for the third wicket between Ali and Azam were all valuable contributions for Pakistan reaching their first innings total of 476. In the second innings, Pakistan batted well in their second innings to get to 252 without losing a single wicket to build on their lead of 17 runs in the first innings over Australia. The opening partnership between al-Haq and Shafiq of 252 for the first wicket was outstanding. Shafiq scoring his maiden test century of 136 not out. He played well after missing out in the first innings. Al-Haq scoring back-to-back centuries with his 111 not out in the second innings. He batted well and became the 10th Pakistan batsman to score 2 centuries in both innings of a test match. So overall, Pakistan's batting was outstanding in this match. I'll give it 10 out of 10. I thought it was really good. A lot of their batsmen were able to convert their starts into big scores, and that's what Australia didn't do in their innings. And Pakistan were able to do it in their innings. Let's talk about some of the batsmen and my thoughts on them and how they performed. We'll start with Aman al-Haq. Came back into the side and made the most of his opportunity. Scored back-to-back centuries, 157 and 111 not out. As we mentioned before, the 10th Pakistan batsman to score back-to-back centuries in a test match for Pakistan. That's a proud achievement for any batsman in test cricket to do that. It's not easy scoring back-to-back centuries in both innings. Even though this was a flat surface at Rawalpindi, you can't take anything away from his innings in both innings. He really played well. This will boost his confidence, and not only for this series, but for his test career. And I think, Aman al-Haq, he talked about his belief. He talked about looking back and improving over the last year and a bit, as he mentioned when he was interviewed a few times during the test match, and I listened to that closely. And it just shows what self-belief and when you look to improve as a player does. And when you believe and look to improve and you want to get better, the results show. And they definitely showed in this test match. He came out, I thought he was watchful, he was patient, he left the right balls, he played the bad balls when Australia went off their line and length, and they bowled a bit short and wide outside off. He was able to score runs, pick off the runs and get the boundaries, and that's what he did. So a very good performance from Aman al-Haq, and well deserved to be named man of the match in this first test. So hopefully for Pakistan, he can continue on scoring the runs in this series. But as we know in cricket, it's unpredictable and nothing's certain. So he will have to work hard again and not get complacent, because it's not going to be this easy all the time. It's going to be different in Karachi, it's going to be different in Lahore, different conditions. So hopefully for Pakistan, he will be able to continue on. But himself, he can't get complacent. And he's got to really work hard to try and get another century in this series. So he batted extremely well. Azhar Ali, let's talk about him, the veteran in this Pakistan side. He batted well for his 185. Under pressure before this test match, a lot of people were doubting his spot in the team because of his lack of form. But the old saying goes, form is temporary, class is permanent. And Azhar Ali is a very good player. You never doubt his ability. For someone who's played over 92 test matches and scored over 6,906 runs and an average of 43 with over 19 centuries, it just shows he's a pretty good player. And he is. And he showed his class here. He loves playing against Australia. I remember when he played that test match when he was in Melbourne in 2016-17, when Pakistan were out here in Australia. Obviously, they lost that series that year, but he played extremely well for that 200 in Melbourne. And he nearly got another 200 against Australia again. So he loves batting against Australia. Once again, like Aman al-Haq, he was patient. Those two had a very good partnership of 208 for the second wicket. He was very watchful. He struggled at the start. Australia were bowling short balls at him, and he's not comfortable with the short ball. But once he got through that barrage of short balls, he was able to get in, get set, and he was looking for a big score, and he got one. He cashed in. So he batted well, and hopefully for him, it will reaffirm to himself that despite, getting on a bit in my career, he's towards the back half of his career. I believe he's 37 or something like that. So, he's got a few years left in him, but this will reaffirm to him that, despite my age is just a number. I can still produce and still get runs for the team, and that's what he did. So I thought he batted extremely well. Abdullah Shafiq, let's talk about him. He's a very good batsman, isn't he? He batted well for his 136 not out in the second innings. He missed out in the first innings, got out for 44 before getting out to Nathan Lyon, trying to take him downtown before lunch. You could see he was very disappointed to get out and felt like he missed his opportunity on a good batting surface. But in the second innings, he was determined to cash in, and he did. Hopefully many more centuries for him in his career, and this century will boost his confidence for the remainder of the series, but also reaffirm to him that I can do it at this level. I can score runs at Test cricket at this international level. I can score runs against the best bowling attacks in the world, and certainly Australia have a good bowling attack. And for him to score runs off that attack was pretty good. So that will boost his confidence for the rest of the series, but also his career as well in Test cricket. So he's a very good player, and good to see him bounce back and cash in and get a century on this flat surface at Rawalpindi. Some of the positives to finish off about the Pakistan batting performance. The one positive I noticed from Pakistan was that the top order were able to convert their starts into big centuries. And that's very important in Test cricket. We talk about the top order, the openers and batsmen at 3, 4 and 5 to convert their starts into big centuries. You want one of your openers to score a big century, and you want some of your top order batsmen 3, 4 and 5 to score a century. One of them to score a big century. And that's what Pakistan did in this test match. One of their openers got a big score. Ahmad al-Haq, 157 in the first innings. Azhar Ali, one of the other top order batsmen to score a big century, 185. And you saw in the second innings, both openers scored big centuries. 136 not out for Shafiq and 111 not out for al-Haq. So that's what I liked about Pakistan. It's something that Australia didn't do in their innings, is where they got starts, they didn't convert them. Whereas the Pakistan batsmen did. They converted those starts. So I like that. And that's what you want to see in a batting unit in Test cricket. You want batsmen to go on with it and convert the starts. So I think that's a big positive and a big tick for Pakistan for this first Test match. And hopefully for them, they can back it up in the second Test match and obviously in the third Test match. If they do that, then there are a good chance of winning this Test series against Australia. Overall, it was a good batting performance from Pakistan. They will be happy that most of their batsmen spent time in the middle and got big scores, and that will boost their confidence for the rest of the series. Let's have a look at Pakistan's bowlers and their performance in this first Test match at Rawalpindi. No wickets for al-Haq, no wickets for Azam, no wickets for Ahmed, 6 wickets for Norman Ali, 1 wicket for Khan, 2 wickets for Afridi, and 1 wicket for Shah. That's how the Pakistan bowlers went about things in this first Test match at Rawalpindi. I thought Pakistan's bowling was pretty good. I think they out-bowled Australia. If you have to ask that question, who bowled better? Was it Pakistan or Australia? Australia bowled okay in the first innings, but the second innings was a bit wayward because the game was sort of ending in a draw, and Australia didn't really want to bowl their main quicks because they wanted to keep them fresh for the next 2 Test matches, and that's understandable. So I think Pakistan actually bowled well. They bowled well in their innings to Australia. To take 10 wickets and to bowl them out for 459 on a pretty much flat pitch was a fantastic effort. And this bowling attack from Pakistan is not even their best attack. There was a lot of questions about their attack. Obviously, not having key players and key bowlers like Hassan Ali and Fahim in particular. This attack was quite weakened without those bowlers being in the side. But this second attack that Pakistan produced in this first test, they did an okay job. I thought Norman Ali bowled well for his 6 wickets. Afridi, he's got a lot of skills with the ball, took 2 wickets. I thought he was very good. Naseem Shah, that delivery to get rid of Alex Carey was an absolute beauty. He bowled okay at times. Khan bowled well for his 1 wicket. He went for a lot of runs, but it was that pitch that wasn't really helpful for the bowlers. So I thought everyone bowled well. So nothing much to add on to that, really. I thought they did a very good job. And they managed to take all 10 wickets, which Australia didn't do. So overall, a good bowling performance from Pakistan. This bowling attack isn't their strongest attack, but they were able to take wickets on a pretty flat pitch and managed to bowl Australia out, which was a brilliant achievement in itself. Overall, it was a good performance with both bat and ball from Pakistan. They will take a lot of positives from this test match heading into the second test match. Let's have a look at Australia's team performance with both bat and ball in this first test at the Rawalpindi Cricket Stadium. We'll start with their batsmen. Khawaja, 97, Warner, 68, Labuschagne, 90, Smith, 78, Head, 8, Green, 48, and Carey, 19. That's how the Australian batsmen went about things in this first test match at Rawalpindi. I thought Australia batted well in this first test match of the series. No surprise that all batsmen got in and scored big runs, obviously, because the pitch was absolutely flat. It was like a block of concrete. Didn't really much break up or did anything over the 5 days. And we sort of knew after when Pakistan were 1 for 200 odd at the end of day 1, I think everybody knew that this game was going to end in a draw, and that's what happened. But going back on Australia's batting, I thought they batted well. The top 2 middle order all contributed. Khawaja, 97, Warner, 68, Labuschagne, 90, Smith, 78, and Green, 48. All of those batsmen will be disappointed not to convert those starts into centuries like Pakistan did with their top to middle order in their first innings in particular. But all good contributions nonetheless, all vital contributions in ensuring that Australia got to 459 on a pitch that was pretty good for batting at Rawalpindi. The partnerships for the top and middle order were handy as well. 156 for the first wicket between Khawaja and Warner, 108 for the third wicket between Smith and Labuschagne, and 81 for the fifth wicket between Smith and Green. All of those contributions were crucial in Australia getting to 459 in the first innings to get them within 17 runs of Pakistan's first innings score of 4 for 476 declared. So it was a pretty good batting performance from Australia. The top order spent some time in the middle. They scored some runs. They'll be disappointed not to convert the starts into centuries, and I think they should have, because this pitch was absolutely flat and pretty good for batting. But overall, it was a solid batting display from Australia. Let's talk about some of the batsmen and my thoughts on how they performed in the test. We'll start with Usman Khawaja. I thought he batted well for his 97. Looked easy at the crease. Made it look so easy, Khawaja. He played what's the word? He played in a relaxed state. That's it. He made it look so easy. He played in that relaxed state that he always does, that relaxing demeanour. He makes it look so easy, but it's not easy. You know, he just goes out there and smashes 97 on a flat pitch without even breaking a sweat. He'll be disappointed not to get the century, but he will certainly get a century on this tour, that's for sure. What I liked about Khawaja was that he was playing at home, obviously coming from Pakistan, obviously a very special moment for him, and he'll be very proud of playing a test match for Australia in Pakistan, where he grew up before he went over to Australia as a young kid. You know, he's very important for Australia in this series to score runs and, you know, opening the batting. Good decision from the selectors to choose him as the opener rather than Marcus Harris. I think if we had Harris opening the batting, he would have struggled. But having Khawaja as the opener, you know, gives us that solid foundation for Australia, knowing that, okay, Khawaja's opening the batting with Warner. We're pretty much in safe hands, and we're really going to get a good start with the opening partnership. And together, Khawaja and Warner added 156 for the opening partnership, which is a fantastic platform to set for the team, especially in this test match on a pitch that was pretty much flat. So Usman Khawaja batted well. David Warner, I thought he batted well for his 68. And I noticed David Warner was a lot happier in this test match. He wasn't flustered, he wasn't angry, he wasn't upset. He was more calm and relaxed, enjoying his cricket. I saw him smiling, having some fun, dancing in the field, interacting with the crowd from time to time when he was batting and when he was fielding. So a very happier David Warner, a relaxed David Warner, and a very important innings for him. 68, once again, he'll be disappointed not to get the century, but I think he should be happy with his contribution in this innings. So David Warner played well, good signs for him for the rest of the series. Marnus Labuschagne, let's talk about him. Batted well for his 90. I thought he looked easy. Just like Khawaja, he looked at ease, he looked relaxed. He looked unfazed by the challenge, obviously not playing much in the subcontinent. It was a bit of a question mark before the series started. How would Labuschagne go in the subcontinent? Even though this pitch didn't have big amounts of turn, it was slow turn, it wasn't really fast turn. So as a batsman, you had more time to get into the right positions with the ball not turning as fast. It'll be a different story in Karachi where the ball will turn a bit more and a lot quicker. But I thought Labuschagne batted well. You know, number one batsman of the world. No wonder he's number one of the world because he's very good. And he batted well. So good signs for Australia that Labuschagne's scoring runs, and no doubt that he, along with Khawaja, will probably score a century in this series and loads of runs for Australia. So he'll be disappointed, like other batsmen from Australia, not to get the century. But good signs going forward for the rest of the series. Steve Smith, he batted well for his 78. And I thought with Steve Smith in this innings, he looked a bit calmer. I noticed in the Ashes he was a bit frenetic. He looked a bit fidgety, even more. We know that Steve Smith has all these mannerisms and he touches his pads and all this stuff. He was doing that a lot more in the Ashes, and he looked a bit tense and he looked a bit on the edge. But I noticed in this innings, here in Pakistan in this first test that he looked a lot calmer at the crease compared to the Ashes, and it really showed in his batting. He was determined. The Steve Smith of old. He'll be disappointed not to get the century. He would have had a sleepless night. But it's good for Australia to see him scoring runs, and hopefully for Australia that he can score that century either in the second or third test match of this series. So good signs from him for Australia that he's scoring runs. Travis Head got out for 8. The only Australian batsman to miss out on this batting paradise at Rawalpindi. The shot he got out to, cutting the ball close to him off Noman Ali wasn't a great shot. I think Travis Head, for him, we know what he can do. He's a very aggressive player. He can score very quickly, as we saw in the Ashes. But I think for Travis Head here in Pakistan, probably take a bit more time to get into your innings. Just relax. Play with that sense of responsibility at the start of your innings. Don't be reckless. And I think the shot he got out to, he'll be disappointed with that. I think for Travis Head, he just needs to spend a lot more time at the crease. Face a lot of deliveries, be patient, and then you can tee off and be aggressive. So for Travis Head, disappointed that he got out for 8 in this first test match of this series. But if Travis Head can spend a lot more time at the crease, then I think he can score some runs and be very handy for Australia in this test series. Last but not least, Cameron Green. I thought Cameron Green batted well for his 48. He'll be disappointed not to go on and get the century and get the half century. But his runs, and especially his overs, when Australia do go down the route of having a second spinner in the side, will be very handy for Australia to have his runs, but also his bowling ability. So I thought he adjusted well to conditions. His first test match outside of Australia, and I thought he handled it pretty well. Obviously, he was a bit patient at the start, and once he got in, he looked pretty good. So for Cameron Green, good signs for him, and for the rest of the series that, he can definitely score runs in these conditions. So good signs there from Cameron Green. Just to finish off Australia's batting performance before we talk about their bowling, some positives to come out of Australia's batting in this test match is that Australia spent some crucial time in the middle. All the Australian top order spent precious time in the middle. Despite not playing in Pakistan before, and no tour matches before the first test, the time that the Australian batsmen spent in the middle in this first test match on an absolute road at Rawalpindi will serve them well for the rest of the series. And you have a look at how much time they spent in the middle, how many balls they faced, and irrespective of how many runs they scored, I had a look at how many balls they faced and how many minutes they batted at the crease, and that's the important factor in all this, is that they spent a lot of time in the middle. Khawaja, for his 97, he faced over 159 balls for 222 minutes at the crease, to quote Richie Beno there. David Warner, 68 runs, he faced over 114 balls for 166 minutes at the crease. Labuschagne, for his 90 runs, he faced over 158 balls. He batted for 190 minutes. Smith, for his 78 runs, he faced 196 balls. He batted for almost nearly 300 minutes, 299 minutes he spent at the crease. And Cameron Green, for his 48 runs, he spent 109 balls out there he faced, and 126 minutes he batted at the crease. So looking at that, that's very good for Australia. Spending that time in the middle will benefit them for the long run in this series. Getting used to the conditions here in Pakistan. Obviously, the pitch here at Rawalpindi was pretty good for batting, and conditions will change dramatically once Australia head to Karachi and then Lahore for the second and third test matches, where the ball does turn a little bit more. But I thought that time in the middle they spent will serve them well. So good to see the Australian top order. And all of those batsmen, Khawaja, Warner, Labuschagne, Smith, Head and Cameron Green, the time they spent in the middle, all of them need to score big runs for Australia. If Australia are looking to score big scores in this series of 400 plus and getting themselves into good positions, all of those batsmen need to do all the work for Australia. That's their job because they're the batsmen. So that time in the middle was very good to see from an Australian point of view, that they spent a lot of time and they faced a lot of balls and they batted for a lot of minutes out in the middle at Rawalpindi. Also, the other positive I saw from Australia was playing against the spinners and their plans and methods towards the spinners. I thought Australia played the spin well in this test match. The ball didn't turn as much here at Rawalpindi, and spin will become more of a threat in Karachi for the second test. But I thought they played the spin pretty well here in Rawalpindi. They were using their feet, getting down to the pitch. They were looking to be aggressive and not let the Pakistan spinners dictate terms to them. Some of the batsmen were playing sweep shots and reverse sweeps and were scoring runs from that shot. And for some of them, it was their undoing. That's how they got out in their innings. Obviously, Khawaja playing that reverse sweep off Norman Ali. He got a bit of a glove and then got out for 97. Steve Smith tried a sweep down the leg side off Norman Ali as well, and he got a bit of glove to Rizwan there. Cameron Green tried to play a sort of sweep shot, but he got a bit of a top edge off Norman Ali again, and he was caught at short flight leg. So there is some risk playing the sweep or reverse sweep, but Australia have a clear plan, and that's their plan against the spinners. We're going to sweep, we're going to play the reverse sweep, and a lot of them executed the shot pretty well, but for some of them, that's how they got out in this innings. So there is a bit of a risk there, but I don't mind that. If that's your plan, stick with your plan. Back your plan, and that's very important for Australia. And obviously Australia are not well known for playing spin all that well in the subcontinent. We do struggle, it's no secret. But I did like that from Australia. I like what I saw, even though the ball didn't turn as much, and it will be a bigger test in Karachi, that's for sure, with the ball turning a lot more. But what I saw in this first test was pretty good signs. So hopefully Australia can build on this heading into the second test in Karachi. What are some of the negatives from Australia's batting? There was only one negative, really, from Australia's batting. I thought everything else was pretty good, but the one negative was not converting the starts into big scores. Khawaja 97, Warner 68, Labuschagne 90, Smith 78, Cameron Green 48. Not converting those starts into big centuries like Pakistan did in their innings when Amal al-Haq 157 and 111, Azhar Ali 185, Shafiq 136 not out. They converted their starts into big scores. So for Australia, they need to convert those starts into big scores. And that's been the problem for Australia over the last few years with their batting, is that we haven't been able to convert those starts into big centuries. So that will be the disappointing factor for Australia in this innings, is that they didn't really convert those starts. But the other one was that they played some poor shots as well. That had to do with a bit of lapse in concentration. Obviously on a flat pitch, you can pretty much bat all day, but you have those moments of when you lapse a bit of concentration, you play a rash shot and you play at a ball that you shouldn't have played at. Most of the Australian batsmen got themselves out with the shots they played, so that was a bit disappointing. But overall, it was a good batting performance from Australia. The time spent in the middle will serve them well for the remainder of the series. Let's have a look at Australia's performance with the ball in this first test match at Rawalpindi. No wickets for Khawaja, 1 wicket for Labuschagne, no wickets for Smith, no wickets for Head, no wickets for Green, no wickets for Stark, 1 wicket for Cummins, 1 wicket for Lyon, and no wickets for Hazelwood. That's how the Australian bowlers went about things on this pretty flat pitch at Rawalpindi with the ball. I thought Australia's bowling performance in this match was okay. I thought the first innings bowling performance was really good. They only managed to take 4 wickets, but you got to remember one of those wickets was a run out, and that was Marnus Labuschagne running out Babar Azam. So technically 3 wickets, but they took 4 wickets with the run out. So technically 3 wickets from the bowlers and 1 from the fielder, obviously, with Labuschagne with that run out. I thought Australia toiled hard. They fought hard. They were resilient. They were mentally tough. They gave it their all. They tried everything. They tried different tactics. They tried different bowlers. They bowled everyone just about in the side. Everyone except for Khawaja, Warner and Carey had a bowl in the first innings. Everyone else had a go. They did well to keep Pakistan to 4 for 476 declared in their first innings. They bowled good lines and lengths and did well to keep the run rate down to slow Pakistan's scoring rate on what was a pretty flat, docile wicket at Rawalpindi. So I thought that was a brilliant effort to keep them to that score and slow down the run rate, which was a pretty good effort on a flat pitch. The second innings, that's where it started to fall away for Australia. They didn't bowl a good line and length. They were inconsistent with their lines and lengths. Stark, Hazelwood and Cummins didn't bowl all that much in the second innings. Stark only bowled 7 overs, Hazelwood 5 and Cummins 4. It was pretty much down to Nathan Lyon and the part-timers and Cameron Green to bowl most of the overs for Australia. Nathan Lyon bowled 26 overs, Labuschagne 15, Head 13, Smith 2, Green 4, Khawaja 1 did most of the bowling. So I can understand why Pat Cummins did that, is because, well, Cummins knew, and everyone knew from Australia, and I think everyone watching knew, that this game was not going to go anywhere. It was going to end in a draw. So Cummins thought, why not we bowl the part-timers and Nathan Lyon and a bit of Cameron Green as well, rather than bowl myself or Stark or Hazelwood into the dirt or into the dust. It's not the risk that we want to take because we don't want an injury. And we've got to think about the second and third test matches coming up in the series. So I thought that was a good move from Cummins not to risk it because the game wasn't going to go anywhere. Pakistan weren't going to declare. They weren't going to dangle the carrot and ask Australia to bat in the last innings because they knew that they couldn't win the game. So I like that move from Cummins. He was thinking about the long-term prospects of the series, not risking injury, which was a good move there. So... And it was a pretty tough bowling performance from Australia. They managed to take 4 wickets in 239 overs and conceded over 728 runs at a bowling average of 182. And you've got to remember, one of the wickets was the run out of Labuschagne getting rid of Babar Azam run out. So technically 3 wickets. So it was a pretty tough day in the office for Australia with the ball in this first test. But Australia got some questions to ask themselves with the ball heading into the second test in Karachi. And that is the question about, do we play 2 spinners? Mitchell Swepson's talked about potentially making his test debut for Australia in the second test. Obviously, Karachi, it does spin a bit more than it does in Rawalpindi, for example. So definitely Australia are thinking about the 2-spinner approach. Do we go with Swepson or do we go with Ashton Agar? Those are the questions they have to ask themselves, and maybe have to relook at the tactics and the plans with the ball because, they tried everything in this match. So maybe they need to relook at that and say, right, maybe we should change our tactics up a bit because Pakistan played pretty well. So, Pat Cummins and the Brains Trust and the rest of the team will come up with the new tactics, hopefully for the next test, because the tactics they had in this test didn't work. Because it was pretty much a flat pitch. Everything they tried didn't work. They were trying to buy wickets. Both teams were trying to buy wickets. And it worked for Pakistan because they were able to bowl Australia out in their innings. But it didn't work for Australia when they were bowling to Pakistan. So, yeah, pretty tough bowling performance from Australia in this test match. But and also the other question is, Cameron Green was underutilised in this test match. He bowled only 15 overs in the first innings and only 4 in the second innings. So that's a combined total of 19 overs for the match. Now, I can understand why Pat Cummins under-bowled Cameron Green. We know with Cameron Green, he's had some history with injuries, obviously some back injuries and etc. So obviously with Pat Cummins, he was trying to think about the long-term prospects that we may need Cameron Green for his overs because he could be the potential frontline quick for when we do go down the route of playing 2 spinners and taking either Stark or Hazelwood, one of the quicks out, and playing the second spinner. So we need Cameron Green to be fresh and ready to go for the second or third test. So I can understand why he under-bowled him in this test match because the commentators were talking about that a lot where they said, well, Cummins, he's under-bowled Green. He should have bowled a lot more. But you've got to remember that other side is that Pat Cummins is trying to keep him fresh, making sure he doesn't break down because we do need him for the second and third test matches because you do need to play 2 spinners in Karachi and Lahore because conditions there will turn. So we do need Cameron Green for his runs at number 6, but also the overs he can bowl and the vital wickets he can take. We need that as well. So I can understand why Pat Cummins under-bowled him in this match. But overall, it was a good effort from with the ball from Australia, despite conditions being tough for bowling and the wicket not offering much assistance. They managed to stick at it and not give up. Overall, it was a good effort from Australia with both bat and ball in this test match. They will take a lot of positives from this test match heading into the second test match at Karachi. Let's preview the second test of the series between Pakistan and Australia from the National Stadium, talk about the potential 11s for both teams and who's going to win this second test. Let's have a look at both teams' test stats at the National Stadium. The first test match played between Pakistan and Australia at the National Stadium in Karachi was back in 1956. They've played 8 matches. 3 of them have been draws. Pakistan have won 5. Australia have won none. So those are the stats there between the two nations at the National Stadium in Karachi. Let's have a look at the potential 11s for both teams for the second test. We'll start with Pakistan's potential 11. Shafiq Al-Haq, Azhar Ali, Azam, Alam, Rizwan, Ashraf, Norman Ali, Khan Afridi and Hassan Ali. I think Pakistan may make 2 changes to their 11 for the second test at the National Stadium. I think Itkar Ahmed and Naseem Shah to miss out, and Fahim, Ashraf and Hassan Ali to come back into the side. Both Ashraf and Ali have been injured. If both of them are fit, they should be back into the side for Pakistan. With them in this Pakistan side, it does make it a stronger bowling attack for Pakistan. That could be Pakistan's potential 11 for the second test. Let's have a look at Australia's potential 11 for the second test. Warner, Khawaja, Labuschagne, Smith, Head, Green, Carey, Cummins, Swepson, Hazelwood and Lyon. I think Australia will make 1 change to their 11 for the second test at the National Stadium. I think Mitchell Starc will miss out for Mitchell Swepson, who will probably come in to make his test debut. Australia are thinking about playing 2 spinners in Karachi, which is usually the norm. Obviously, it was either going to be Starc or Hazelwood to miss out for Swepson. If they do decide to go with the 2 spinners, Australia, I think they'll probably leave Mitchell Starc out. He's played 6 test matches in a row. So I think for Starkey, in this test match, he wasn't really effective. Obviously, the pitch wasn't helping the bowlers anyway. But I think Mitchell Starc will miss out. Mitchell Swepson will come into the side to make his debut. Australia need to give Swepson a go to see if he's up to playing test cricket. And you never know. He may bowl Australia to victory and take 5 wickets in this second test match. You never know, because you've got to give him a try. You don't know until you try the player to see if he's any good or not. So for Mitchell Swepson, he'll definitely come in, and Australia need to play him to see if he's any good. Because with tours coming up to Sri Lanka and India after the Pakistan tour for Australia, Mitchell Swepson will be in those squads for the tours of Sri Lanka and India. So Australia need to give him some game time now in this series against Pakistan to see if he can actually do it at test level. Because at Karachi, spin is more prevalent, spin will be more effective, and definitely Australia struggled in the first test with only playing 3 quicks and the 1 spinner. Obviously, we had Labuschagne, Smith, Head bowl a few overs of part-time spin, but having another specialist spinner in the side like Mitchell Swepson, he can be more effective and Australia can take more wickets. So definitely Australia are thinking about the 2-spinner approach, and I think they should, because this is an important test match. Australia need to win this test match to hopefully win the series, and same with Pakistan as well. But for Australia, they need to go with the 2 spinners. It's an important test match in this series because the first test has ended in a draw, so this test match is all important for the series. So they'll definitely go with the 2-spinner approach with Mitchell Swepson. So that could be Australia's potential 11 for the second test. And both of these 11s could be the potential 11s for both teams for this second test match at the National Stadium. Who's going to win this second test at the National Stadium? I can't choose a winner. This test match could go either way and could be an arm wrestle at Karachi. The pitch would be more favourable for the spinners. This is an important test match in the series, and whoever wins here at Karachi will be in the box seat to win the test series. Whoever can execute with both bat and ball and in the field over the 5 days will come out on top and win this test match. But I'm hoping we see a really good contest between the bat and the ball for the sake of the series, and let's hope we don't see another flat pitch in Karachi as we did here at Rawalpindi. So I can't really choose a winner. I think it could go either way. Pakistan are favourites, of course, being at home. Australia are on the back foot, being the underdogs. But I think it could really go either way. So I just hope that we have a good contest, we have a good pitch, and hopefully we have a brilliant test match. So it could go either way. I can't choose a winner. So whoever can execute over the 5 days will come out on top and win the test match. What can we expect from both teams heading into the second test at the National Stadium? Pakistan will be looking to back up the good performance with both bat and ball heading into the second test. The important thing for Pakistan is not to get complacent, because conditions will be vastly different in Karachi to Rawalpindi. They will know that Australia won't be easy to beat and will fight, so they need to be ready for that. Australia will be hoping to back up the good performance with the bat from the first test, heading into the second test at Karachi. Conditions will be very different in Karachi, with spin expected to play a big part, so the Australian batsmen need to back themselves and their techniques to get the job done. Also, the Australian batsmen need to make sure when they get a start with the bat, they need to convert that start into a big century. Also, the Australian bowlers will be looking to bounce back and put in a stronger performance with the ball after a tough time of it at Rawalpindi. What a disappointing start to this important series. The pitch here at Rawalpindi wasn't a good surface, and this test match hasn't done any favours to promote test cricket. Let's hope we see a contest between the bat and the ball at Karachi for the second test. Well, that's all the time we have for this episode. Be sure to subscribe and click the bell to get the latest episodes of the podcast, and like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Until next time, keep safe and bye for now.